What if I told you that the FIA has just publicly exposed the most sensitive data about Leclerc's Ferrari, right after his fastest lap in the second week of testing in Bahrain? The second week of testing in Bahrain began like any other preseason day. Long runs, variable fuel loads, hidden programs, and teams playing at random. But everything changed the moment the FIA decided to do something that, in another context, would have gone almost unnoticed: publish aggregated technical metrics of the cars under the new regulatory framework. It was not an accusatory statement. It was not a formal investigation. It was something colder, more technical, and more powerful: data. Top speed, electrical energy deployed per turn, ERS usage curves, low-speed traction patterns. Elements that, on paper, are part of the transparency of the new 2026 regulation without MGUH. But when those numbers were crossed with Charles Leclerc's fastest laps in this second week in Bahrain, the story stopped being technical and became narrative. Because the data showed something very concrete. The SF26 was within the law, and at the same time it was exploiting the electrical section better than anyone else. On a track like Bahrain, where traction at the exit of slow corners is decisive and the main straight punishes any deficit in electrical power, Ferrari not only did not suffer, it dominated. The telemetry that began to circulate among analysts pointed to a gain close to 4/10 only in the main straight. And it was not because of less aerodynamic load. It was because of the way the car deployed its energy. The Ferrari activated its electric delivery earlier, in a more aggressive and sustained manner. 0 to 200 km per hour was more forceful. The acceleration did not seem gradual but continuous. And in the new regulatory scenario where electrical management is even more critical, that is a declaration of intent. This is where the paddock begins to murmur. Because when the FIA publishes metrics and those metrics show that a team has a clear advantage in a key area of the regulations, rivals do not look away. They begin to wonder how. They begin to review their own energy maps. They become suspicious, even though there is nothing illegal. And that is the most important nuance. There is no serious indication of illegality. There is no open procedure. There is no formal warning. What there is scrutiny. And an implicit message that resonates in all garages: we know exactly what you are doing. But while the external focus is on the technical potential of the SF26, something even more delicate is happening inside the red garage. The figures don't just compare cars between teams. They also compare drivers within the same team. And in this second week in Bahrain, Charles Leclerc was not only fast. It was the absolute reference. He clocked 1 minute and 34.273 seconds as his opening shot, consolidated extremely consistent long runs and hinted, in more aggressive configurations, at an even higher ceiling. More than 130 laps in one day, stable pace, evident confidence. The public exposure of data makes this action impossible to ignore. Because when official numbers support a driver's performance, the impact is greater. It is no longer just a visual sensation. It is no longer just stopwatch perception. It is quantified evidence. And in that context, the second week in Bahrain begins to take a different turn for Lewis Hamilton. This is not a lack of dramatic adaptation. It is not about crisis, but contrast. While Leclerc seems completely aligned with the SF20SIXS electrical architecture, exploiting its deployment at the exact points on the circuit, Hamilton is going through a more progressive process of understanding the car. And when the data is on the table, that contrast is amplified. The question that begins to float in the air is not whether the car is illegal. It's whether others can reach that level of electrical efficiency before the season starts. Because one thing is for Ferrari to stand out in the second week of testing in Bahrain. And it is quite another for this superiority to be supported by official metrics that compare electrical deployment, energy efficiency, and acceleration. When transparency comes into play, there is no longer room for bland narratives. There are only figures left. And the figures had their own name: Charles Leclerc. In this second week, the Monegasque not only set fast laps. He showed complete mastery of the electrical behavior of SF26. His management of the deployment was surgical. Early activation when exiting slow corners, clean transition in acceleration, stability in critical traction areas. It was not a nervous car. It was not a car on the limit. It was a car under control. And that, in preseason, says a lot. But inside the same red garage there is another 7-time world champion who arrived with the intention of marking territory from the first serious test of the year. Lewis Hamilton landed in this second week in Bahrain knowing that there was no room for long adaptation processes. The message was clear: compete from the beginning. The problem is that the context changed. Because when the FIA publishes technical metrics, the comparison is no longer subjective. It is no longer track feeling. It is no longer different programs. It is quantified electrical efficiency. It is registered top speed. It is measurable acceleration. And in that public photograph, Leclerc appears completely synchronized with the car. Hamilton, on the other hand, is going through a different phase. More progressive, more analytics, adjusting your style, understanding balance, exploring energy delivery. Nothing dramatic, nothing out of control, but visible enough to generate noise. Because the second week in Bahrain was not just about finding performance. It was about sending a message. And the message that comes out of those days is that the SF26 has enormous potential, and that Leclerc is already exploiting it. When the paddock begins to talk about the Ferrari gaining 4/10 only on the straight thanks to its electrical deployment, when it is commented that its low-speed traction is superior, when it is pointed out that the car accelerates from 0 to 200 km per hour more aggressively than its rivals, the narrative begins to build itself. And that narrative puts pressure. External pressure because Red Bull, Mercedes and McLaren already know where Ferrari's strength is. But above all, internal pressure. Because Ferrari did not sign Hamilton to be a driver in a prolonged adaptation process. He signed him to lead. And the second week in Bahrain leaves a clear picture. At this specific moment in the SF20SIXS development, the car's natural technical leader is Leclerc. That does not mean definitive hierarchy. It does not mean sentence. But it does establish a dynamic. Hamilton is used to mastering technical environments, to mold the car to your style, to impose rhythm. Here, however, the car already seems to have a defined identity, and that identity coincides with the style of the Monegasque. And when official data supports it, the impact is greater. The FIA did not charge. He didn't investigate. He did not sanction. But by publishing metrics, it exposed the true level of SF26 and inadvertently amplified internal comparison. The second week in Bahrain not only confirmed that Ferrari is strong. The FIA published metrics. Ferrari confirmed its legality. Rivals analyzed every figure. And the SF26 was exposed as a car that has understood the new electrical paradigm before anyone else. There is no MGUH. There is no external help to hide deficiencies. It all depends on how you manage, store, and deploy energy. And in that section, the Ferrari showed an efficiency that does not seem circumstantial. The key is not just that it is fast. It's where it's fast. Low-speed traction. Clean exits from tight curves. Sustained acceleration on a straight line with a heavier wing load. That combination is not common. Typically, winning in one area means giving up in another. Not here. Here the car seems balanced, stable, and above all, optimized at the exact moment when the regulations force everyone to relearn. That changes the board. Because if Ferrari has found a more efficient electrical architecture, others cannot immediately copy it. They need to understand it, develop it, adjust it, and time in Formula One is the most valuable resource. The FIA, by increasing transparency, sent a double message. To Ferrari, you are inside but we are watching you. And to the rest of the teams, if someone is ahead, you will know. It is a way of balancing without intervening, to control without sanctioning. And meanwhile, inside the red garage, the story continues to evolve. The second week in Bahrain consolidated a first technical impression. Leclerc is fully aligned with the SF26. His fast laps were not isolated. His consistency was not accidental. And the data backs it up. Hamilton, for his part, is not out of the equation. But the initial narrative does not belong to him. And in a team like Ferrari, where internal balance can define entire seasons, the start is essential. The driver who masters the car first sets the direction of development. Mark sensations, mark trust. The SF26 seems to have been born comfortable with Leclerc's style. The big question now is not whether the car is legal. That's already clear. The real question is whether this structural advantage seen in Bahrain is sustainable when the real pressure of race weekends begins. If the electrical management that surprised in the test is maintained with real fuel, with traffic, with open strategies. And above all, if within the team itself that initial difference is diluted or becomes a hierarchy. Because Bahrain did not give out trophies, but he did provide information. Information that the FIA put on the table. Information that rivals are already studying. Information that places Ferrari as a real threat. And the most interesting thing of all is that this story did not begin with a sanction. It started with numbers. The second week of testing in Bahrain did not leave a sanction. It did not leave an accusation, and it did not leave an inflammatory statement. But it left something much more important: clarity. Technical clarity. The FIA published metrics. Ferrari remained within the law. And the data confirmed that the SF26 has electrical efficiency and low-speed traction that are currently a step ahead of the rest. It's not smoke. It is not perception. They are figures. The car accelerates better, deploy early, manage energy with greater precision, and it does so without compromising stability or downforce. That is not a circumstantial advantage. It is a solid foundation. But beyond pure performance, Bahrain also left an internal photograph. Charles Leclerc seems to have understood the DNA of the SF26 from the get-go. His fast laps were not isolated. They were consistent with published data. He was the driver who best translated technical potential into tangible performance. Lewis Hamilton, for his part, is going through a different phase. It's not a crisis. It is not defeat. It is adaptation in an environment where comparison is immediate and public. And when the FIA puts numbers on the table, any differences are amplified. The conclusion is simple but powerful. Ferrari is not under suspicion. Ferrari is under observation. And that is very different. Bahrain did not define a championship, but it did set an initial narrative. A narrative in which the SF26 appears as an advanced car in the new electrical paradigm. And in which the most interesting battle may not only be against Red Bull or McLaren, but within the Red Garage itself. The season hasn't officially started yet. But after what we saw in Bahrain's second week, one thing is certain. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.